Tuesday, May 6th, and that guy right there is one of my favorite guys out there, Guy Haberman. We're also streaming on his YouTube channel. Damon Bruce Plus is always brought to you by Ike's Sandwiches. Haberman, it's been a while since we've talked. How you doing, man?
Great to see you, D. Bruce.
Thanks
for having me.
Yeah, yes. As I was telling you, I got to watch and cover the NFL draft first couple rounds from Japan. And congratulations, you did a hell of a job. I learned an awful lot about what was going on back in the States by watching some of your recaps and everything. So continued success, man. These YouTube channels are officially growing. It's a real thing. It's happening.
Yeah, if you can quote unquote cover the draft from Japan, then you know we're in a different world than we were 20 years ago, 10 years ago.
I'm probably exaggerating my actual journalistic endeavor.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm paying attention to the NFL draft from Japan is really what it was more than anything else. Anyways, man, it has been a pretty interesting offseason for the San Francisco 49ers. And that's where I want us to start today's live stream because, you know, it's always on the tip of everyone's tongue. I mean, I labeled the live stream today, 49ers enter 2025 a better football team. And before you and I even come on the air, I mean, a better football team is hardly some declaration of greatness that's about to be, you know, handed to us. But boy, people are emotional. Look at this. Really, Damon? You too? You're out here like these other lame 49er content creators pumping sunshine in this old mediocre team's ass. Fucking pathetic. The O-line, blah, blah, blah. You sold out too. Pumping sunshine. Number one, why are you so angry?
Hold on. That's not your job.
No. But why is that guy so angry? And I don't understand why everyone's so upset about the position that the 49ers are in. I do think that they're a better football team than they were last year. Last year was a year that wasn't just, you know, everyone forgot how to play and became incompetent and negligent at what they do. It was a year that was pockmarked with major injuries all over the place. I can explain what happened last year, and I can explain that through a draft and just Christian McCaffrey walking back into the room, I think they're going to have a better year than last year. You throw in a last place schedule, all of a sudden, I kind of like their chances a lot. It's been an offseason of massive complaints here, Guy. Anxiety from all over people. Let's just start with one thing that you think is a real positive step in the right direction, no matter what it is. What is the one decision, direction, draft pick, whatever, that you think has been a right step forward in a tumultuous offseason for the 49ers?
Well, Robert Saleh. You know, I think the Niners have had back-to-back defensive coordinators who were allowed no time by anybody, by Kyle, by you, by me, by your average fan, by your hardcore fan. You know, I think we've seen with John Lynch. John Lynch had never worked in a front office before, but why did Kyle Shanahan hire him to be his general manager? Because he trusts him. And the 49ers were not in a position for Kyle Shanahan the last 2 years to hire the guy that he trusted the most. And it affected everything. Like it was an ongoing, they almost won the Super Bowl with Steve Wilkes, but it was an ongoing story. You know, I think anybody just wants to, especially if you're a football team trying to win games, you want to minimize noise. And the Niners have not been able to minimize noise on D. If the Niners give up 30 points in the first 3 games each this year, that's a problem. Look what the hell's going on. But what we won't say is their defensive coordinator incapable of coaching defense?
Right.
So I think that's one thing. I also think you asked the question, like, why are you so mad? I think it gets the more you almost win but lose, it gets hard. You know, like Jalen Hurts. There are plenty of people who don't think Jalen Hurts is a true, quote unquote, franchise quarterback worth $50+ million.
Right.
His offense, he had one of the best offensive lines in the league.
I read a story out of Philadelphia just a couple weeks ago saying that this year coming up is going to be the make or break year for Jalen Hurts, as if the Super Bowl accomplishment is already so far in the rearview mirror, it doesn't even count anymore.
But here's what he did do. He did win a Super Bowl. And it just, there is a collective just kind of you just get a little more slack if you finish the job. And Kyle Shanahan twice not finishing the job. Whoever's fault, you know, it's everybody's fault. But it turns the temperature up from the outside. And the question is like, does it turn the temperature up from Jed York? Does it turn the temperature up internally? You know, But I think that's part of what would happen. Is like Kyle doesn't win a Super Bowl. They get close. There's a question about whether they know the overtime rules. Like all of this stuff contributes to this kind of general, does he know what he's doing? That temperature.
Right. Or competence is actually being questioned, not just game planning.
He is like, without a doubt, the lowest bar, more than competent. Like that's not a debate. Will he ever win the Super Bowl? Real debate. Is he a competent head coach? Without a doubt. But I think that's where I think that is the core of all this stuff. Not winning being close and not winning a championship.
Without a doubt. It's easy to just be ignored by the girl who totally ignored you your entire high school career. But the one that you actually went out on a few dates with, you thought you had a chance with, then says not interested, then that hurts, and that's really what's happened here. The 49ers have gotten so agonizingly close, and everyone has been left with such, unfulfilled sports feelings by this. There's like maybe it's time for a divorce, when really, pop into a little marriage counseling and you'll find that everything's in a lot better shape than you think it is compared to a lot of other marriages. And of course, we mean sports marriages. I'll tell you, I thought it was a pretty interesting draft from the standpoint that they went so heavy defensive line. I mean, forget what teams say. They tell you who they are in their actions, right? And the way that they address the defense with the 5 first picks, I am excited about Alfred Collins, CJ West, and Mikael Williams just against the run. We'll talk about getting to the quarterback throughout the season. It usually ends up happening some way, somehow. I'm not really worried about, they're going to be at the bottom of the league in sacks. They're not going to be able to get to a quarterback. I think they will, but stop the run first. That's how defense works in this league. And I think that the 49ers are going to be much better at that. Just by default, like you said, Robert Saleh plus big guys in the middle. And look, I'm going to ask you a little bit about calling some Indiana games and your impressions of going to Bloomington a little bit later on. But CJ West is a guy that you watched play. CJ West used to be one of the few guys that you really had to concentrate on. For CJ West to now be on a defensive line as the other guy, the guy who can clean things up around the dude who's eating up blocks, I'm pretty damn excited about that. And I just don't think it's because I went to IU. Like, this kid's a football player.
Stopping the run changes every other aspect of the 49ers. If they can stop the run, they can get their defense off the field, which means they can then play from ahead, which means that then they can get sacks. If you can stop the run, you take pressure off of your pass rushers to get sacks. You take pressure off your cornerbacks because now they are they're playing defense on 3rd and 7 instead of 3rd and 1. So like all of these things trickle down from stopping the run. Fundamental football teams are built on defense from the front back. From the defensive line backwards. Like you talk to like a fundamental football builder, that's what they say. And it's what the best Niners teams have been built on under Jim Harbaugh and then Kyle Shanahan, from the front of the defense back. And I brought this up the other day, and it created some acrimony, understandably, because to say that, and we've talked about this for a few years, that like any team is better playing from ahead. The Niners are, because they run the ball so well, and then play action is the way they get their offense. In the pass game, they're really good from playing ahead. Another way of saying that is it sounds like you call them a front runner. And a front runner is a very negative connotation, rightfully so.
But I don't think it should be.
Front runner from an emotional standpoint means you can only succeed when things are going well.
Right.
You're not mentally tough, is what front runner means. In this context, it means you're 1-47 or whatever the stat is, trailing by a touchdown or more going into the fourth quarter. Like, not a great stat. That stat is not a good stat.
It is not a good stat, but I actually saw it in comparison to other NFL coaches. And the best case scenario is someone is like 6-42 in the same scenario. That's just a handful of wins that Kyle doesn't have.
I know. But to go back to your original point, I would have loved for them to add another offensive lineman too. They do a pretty good job with drafted offensive linemen, so you'd like a little more of it. But I heard Barrows kind of describe, like, there were just some guys that they might have liked that just they weren't there for them. So, that they weren't able to do it. But I'm with you. I'm bullish. I was talking to somebody the other day who was talking about going out to a Niner practice. I know it was. I had Jake Butt on my show. Jake played tight end at Michigan and was a great player, won the Mackey Award, and
Very good
had
player.
injuries derail his career. But he said, I remember one year he was on the Broncos and they practiced against the Niners. He's like, I remember coming out to practice and their defensive linemen were huge. And you remember going out, fans that went to open practices or those like DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead days.
Eric Armstead is one of the biggest human beings you'll ever stand around.
If your defensive line is badass, it's just like the most swaggy thing you can have, I think, as a football team. Like everyone wants to be like high flying and like, a bunch of skill guys. But if your D line is badass, it just changes the DNA of your team.
Yeah.
Because you scrap. And, that's what they have not been. That's what they were not last year. And you wonder, like, why can't Nick Bosa get 17 sacks? Well, it's because defenses can run it down their throat. You don't get sacks when the other team's going 5 yards to carry.
Right.
They don't need to drop back.
You can also triple team that guy and not really worry about the rest doing damage. And that happened quite a bit as well. Hey, Guy, we got people excited giving super chats right off the rip here. Iceman 0072 saying, I love the powerhouse duo. Just don't ask Guy about his movie takes. Worse than Rados.
Tell me which. I want more. I want to fight about this.
What movies are you way off on in his estimation?
I don't know. I pay another $5 and tell me.
Jonas Ymir Johansson from Flurgen Jurgenland over in the Flurgen says, my two favorite guys. I'm having new teeth work in Budapest. It's an amazing city. Could you comment on Leeds United? I can't comment with any authority on Leeds as I could your dental work. I don't know what's going on there. Not a fan of dentistry or really soccer. So I can tell you that Jed York is what owns that and maybe didn't spend as much money in this offseason for the 49ers because he wants to spend more money over there. I really don't know. I'm not going to pretend to be a soccer expert. How do you feel about Leeds or dentistry for that matter, Guy?
I'm a big dentistry guy, actually.
Big dentistry guy.
My dad's an orthodontist. And I'm pro dentistry.
Let's see. By the way, let's see the toothy smile. How are we doing? Did we have braces?
I had braces for 3 months in 1999.
Okay.
So not really. I do have a wire that my dad put in down here.
Uh-huh.
He put that in 1999.
And it's still there.
It's 2025.
You need it on that wall. You want it on that wall.
That's right. I think that's that's a testament to high quality work right there. But yeah, big dentistry guy, big floss guy, water pick guy, electric toothbrush guy.
Wow. See,
man,
I try to get, I'm the guy who flosses the week before the dentist appointment. Yeah. I'll be honest. I'm not as good. My grandfather was a dentist. My son's grandfather, our dentist, Jillian's father is a dentist. Maybe that's why I look past dentistry and I don't appreciate it because it's always been so readily available. In the family.
You take it for granted.
I take it for granted. I take good dentistry. I have never had to go to Budapest for dentistry. Look at it that way. So we take for granted the things we see every day.
They do teeth in Turkey in addition to plugs. From what I learned this on Friday. What's today? I learned this on Sunday night. Somebody told me.
Really?
Yeah. Turkey's also known for dental implants. This is what I'm told.
Okay. See, I mean, we learn a little something new every day here on the channel. By the way, since we're doing a little business for the good folks in the dentistry world, let's do a little business here. Make sure you eat at Ike's today, folks. I don't know what you're doing for lunch. Sign up for the Love Rewards program. You get your way to free drinks and chips. And whenever you order, if you're ordering for your office, a little Ike's catering goes a long way. You'll be very, very happy. Your entire office will be that you brought some Ike's in. By the way, the Dubliner and West Portal, best Guinness in all of San Francisco. Head on over. Tell Kenny and John we said hello. Great place to go watch a little Warriors playoff game this evening. Fantastic spot. And I want to encourage everyone to download campsitetonight.app. If you're camping in the state of California, download that. It's like hotels.com, but for camping spaces in all sorts of parks here in California. So download campsitetonight.app if you're making any plans this summer for a big camping trip. So there you go. Back to
my wife just had a big Ike's office lunch. So everyone was very happy.
There you go. Just winning people over. Hearts and minds. Every army marches on its stomach, your stomach will be well taken care of.
The menage a trois.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one. That's one of the originals that he used to serve at the original location. It's one of his first big sandwiches. John Lynch just said on a podcast that had Mikael Williams not been on the board, they would have gone in another direction, and that direction probably would have been offense, given the run on the two tackles had already gone through, and Campbell and Membu were off the board. I'm wondering if they wouldn't have pivoted to one of the two best available tight ends guy, and if that might have spelt au revoir for George Kittle. Kittle obviously maintains rare status on this team. He is beloved. He is their all-world tight end. He's their mascot. He's a fan favorite. Rival fans love George Kittle, for goodness sakes. There are Seahawks fans who like George Kittle. He is basically living in the rarefied, criticism-free era that very few professional athletes in 2025 are afforded. But would you have spent $20 million on him, even though he is that special and he's so much part of the id of the 49ers in a year where they talk so much about belt tightening? Are you surprised that Kittle gets a $20 million deal at the age of 31, with injury concerns following him everywhere?
I mean, he was the best player on their offense last year. He was playing at his peak, it felt like.
Yeah, he was great.
Now, NFL players, if you go look at, Football Reference page, you go from, this guy's got 5 more years in him, to like a year and a half real fast. It happens all the time. But yes, I would have spent the money on George Kittle. Now, you combine that thing that you just said about a tight end, Tyler Warren, with the report. The report's not the right word. The insight on Friday or last Thursday from what's her name from The Athletic, Diana Rossini.
Yes,
it was like, somebody offered, and it wasn't clear. Were the Niners asking for a 2, or somebody offered a 2, or, but like there's not a lot there, but there's something there. Like I tried to tell people the other day, she knows more than what she's saying and is saying as much as she can. So would they have gone to Tyler Warren? Would they have just gone offensive lineman? I mean, the thing we know about the Niners is they don't go best player available when it comes to offensive line. Like they have to really specifically like the person. So maybe there is an offensive lineman they specifically really liked. We know that the day before the draft, Daniel Jeremiah went on NFL Network and did his mock draft. And there's 2 kind of mock drafts. There's mock draft 1.7.2 that you put out on January 17th. And then there's the one you do the day before, and that is the mock draft of record.
Yeah.
And he did a couple things in that mock draft. Number one, he said, I'll mock Shedeur Sanders to the Steelers at 21. But then he said, but I won't be surprised if he falls out of the first round. And he also said he had the Niners taking Gray Zabel, from a guard, a center, from North Dakota State, who eventually goes to Seattle at 18. And so, like, to me, these are not blind picks once you get into Daniel Jeremiah's day before the mock draft. Right. That is we don't want to take that guy at 11, but if the guy we want's not there and we can't trade back. So, like, that's when you say what you said, like, that's what I have in my mind. And then I'll give you a third thing. Would they have taken a receiver? Sounds crazy. But
look at it this way. It's not crazy from a need standpoint, but it's crazy from is Kyle actually going to even put him out there for 30 snaps?
Well, the one guy that did get like an actual opportunity as a rookie was Ayuk, right? The guy they drafted high, the guy they really target. Ricky Pearsall was a first-round pick, but he was not a targeted first-round pick in the way Ayuk was. But good point. So, yeah, I mean, that's where my head goes. But I think, the Daniel Jeremiah one is the one that comes to mind. I think Tyler Warren would have been fascinating.
Yeah.
Colson Loveland
went before him.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, me too. But I also, do you want Kittle or do you want Kelsey? You know, there are people that think that Loveland's the more dynamic receiver. And obviously the Bears are one of those people.
We will see. I've seen Bears screw up a lot of picks in my time. By the way, Jonas didn't come with any movie specifics, but he did drop another 240.
No, it wasn't him. It was somebody. It was Iceman or somebody like that.
It might have been, but Jonas came with another. And anyways, Barry Ford says, waiting for the VA disability rating to go from 70 to 100% so I can get the free dental work. Very smart. If you can buy a little patience. In the meantime, $5 goes into the ganja jar, and we thank you very much, Barry, as always. Again, streaming on both Damon Bruce Plus and Guy's channel. If you're watching on one, give a like to the other, vice versa. Subscribe to both, if you will. Please, thank you very, very much. Even with all the offseason goodbyes and the hand-wringing about who isn't here anymore, I mean, I just looked at the 49ers roster. There's still an awful lot of star power on this roster. There really is. Do they have enough guys to fill in the holes around these stars? Like, that's what the draft is about, and it's what free agency is supposed to be about. They didn't dive deep into free agency, that's for sure. But I look at this roster and I really think, what is the biggest difference between this year and last year, besides the ability to hopefully stop the run with a rebuilt defensive line and Robert Saleh coming in the room? The big blinking name is Christian McCaffrey. You know, a lot of doubt as to what might happen. The word Achilles here in the Bay Area has, been a very hot point issue over Durant and Klay Thompson. But this isn't a torn Achilles. This isn't a ruptured, surgically repaired, as bad as it gets Achilles injury. It's bilateral tendinitis, which with time, which with work, which with rehab, something that I'm giving, Christian McCaffrey an awful lot of the benefit of the doubt. He clearly takes great care of himself, even if he's only back at 90%, 85%. Guy that's still a top 10 offensive weapon in this league. And you give that back to Kyle Shanahan in this offense, that alone makes the 49ers a better football team. He was a forgotten man last year.
Well, don't forget, though, the PCL is what, he comes back from the bilateral Achilles and that hurts the PCL, right? So it's like he came back from the one and then he has the other and then he has the knee. So hopefully all the work to get back healthy doesn't create the bilateral Achilles issue again. I don't totally agree that 85% of Christian McCaffrey is still an elite offensive weapon. I don't know that 80 like this, the way Kyle wants to use him,
right?
Or anybody would want to. I mean, the reason you want to use him that way, it's like, it's like somebody who owns like 15 classic cars and just like drives the same one all the time. It's like, yeah, this is just the best car ever made. I'm just going to drive this car. Why would I drive the other car?
Right.
I don't know what Jay Leno does in his garage, but it'd be like if you had Jay Leno's garage and just drove the same Gulf Wing Mercedes all the time. I don't know. But the one thing you say about this roster, it is once again really predicated on health, really predicated on. They didn't play a game last year.
I mean, the team in football who doesn't live under that roof.
That's true. The one team that was really hurt last year and still won a lot of games was Detroit. Like Detroit lost a lot of games to injury and still had
pretty good year.
A really good year. Yeah. The Niners did not play a game last year with Trent Williams, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and
Debo.
That's 4. And Debo all together. And they played like 7 games with 4 of those guys together. I ran the numbers yesterday, and they went 4-3 in those games. With 4 of those guys plus Brock, because Brock didn't play week 18 and didn't play against the Packers week 12. So, that is the recipe. The good news for their schedule is a significant thing. Warren Sharp says it's the easiest schedule in the league. Now, we don't know dates yet. I mentioned this yesterday, Damon, but one thing that they may benefit from, you love playing in prime time. It means you're a big deal. But it also puts you in tough spots from a scheduling standpoint.
Yeah.
they don't. How many blue chip opponents do they really play? Like, it'll be interesting to see when the schedule comes out. They don't play like last year. They played Buffalo and Green Bay back to back.
Right.
They don't play really a Buffalo or a Green Bay level team this year.
And they, like I said, when this schedule comes out, the order in which the games roll out, of course, matter. But I'm looking for Thursday nights, Sunday nights, Monday nights, and lack of rest. The 49ers had a rest deficiency that was terrible.
Biggest in the league. Biggest in the league. Minus 21.
Right. So let's see what that looks like this year. And I do think you're right. Another benefit of the last play schedule is games that are less than sexy, which means maybe the network is passing on them in terms of first round draft, want to put it in primetime games. So I think there's a lot more arrows pointed in the Niners having success next year direction than it's as bad as it was last year or even worse. Like, I don't think there's a world in which the Niners are a 5-win football team based on what I know about them. And I know who's going to be on their schedule.
Yeah. Missing the playoffs this year would be even worse than it was last year.
I would agree.
Partly because you just did it last year, right? Now you've got back-to-back years that are bad.
By the way, Jonas is checking in here. But did you hear about Parag and what he said about Leeds? No, Jonas, if the story is about soccer, I can't close it from my window screen fast enough. I don't care anything about Leeds, the Niners' relationship. I don't care. Now, he also says there were 500,000 people celebrating last night. Parag said that the mission is from the 49ers enterprises. Do you think it affects the 49ers? If the 49ers are not spending money on the 49ers football success to be putting money towards a soccer team success, I hope the family's team plane goes down. I mean, that to me means I don't care about you anymore. I don't care about soccer. And if it were doing any damage at all to the 49ers' ability to spend, that would be horrific. That would be ridiculous in my mind. And now there's a whole other side of the world who thinks totally opposite of me. So I don't know who's right or wrong. You should only be able to allow to own one team. I really believe that. I'm breaking up the monopolies. I don't think you should be able. It's a conflict of interest if you own more than one professional sports team. I don't think it should be available.
Hold on. I'm thinking if I have an opinion on that.
It did come up out of nowhere.
It's interesting. I'm big on, you need to be able to have synergy, Damon.
Leeds versus yes.
Well, synergy. You need synergy. I mean, the Niners, let's see where they end up from a cap space standpoint by the time we get to the season. My guess is they won't have much.
Yeah, I'm just not that worried about it, to be honest. And like the Yorks better know where their bread is buttered, and it's with the 49ers. Something that you were talking about just a couple days ago, guy, I was watching one of your videos, and I've been talking about this too. And look, it's a matter of when does the Purdy thing get done? Almost the timing on it is now more interesting than the price that's being attached to it. Because it's going to be a $50 million a year conversation, and that conversation has really turned off a lot of people. And I think you are singing the same tune that I am. The $50 million a year price point for a quarterback sounds like a lot, but it's really just a Honda Civic. It's pretty normal. It's a pretty $50 million for a starting caliber NFL quarterback is about to be standard operating procedure, not far away from the normal way of doing business. It's going to be the $60 to $70 million a year quarterback, which we will be seeing in the next 2-3 seasons tops. That's going to be the big price point. $50 million for Brock means you're a starting quarterback. They'll all be making that soon. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, the inflation just happens faster than our brains can wrap our head around it. I was talking to a buddy on Sunday. He's like, we took the family. We hit Taco Bell on a road trip, and it was $38 for 4 people. And so here we are, the old guys sit around like, I remember when Taco Bell was 99,
right.
And when 7 years ago, when Jimmy Garoppolo signed his 5-year, $130-something million contract with the Niners, it paid him the average annual value of that deal came out to $27.4 million, which at the time was the highest in the history of the NFL. 27.4. 7 years ago. The cap has gone up so much so quickly that next year, if Brock's making $50 million in 2026, it'll be the same percentage of the cap as when Jimmy Garoppolo was making, that money. It was 15 or 16% of the cap. So I think that's part of it. I also think part of it, if I'm being fair to the anti-$50 million a year crowd, part of what they say is like most of the teams paying $50 to $60 million a year for their quarterback aren't getting their money's worth. Like Dak at $60 million is not getting your money's worth, or Trevor Lawrence at 55 is not getting your money's worth, or Tua at 54 is not getting your money's worth. But part of that is just when you look at the outlay of who gets paid 50 plus million, there's like 11 guys that you quote unquote wouldn't want to pay it to. And there's 4 that you would. You'd pay it to Lamar. You'd pay it to Josh Allen. You'd pay it to Burrow. You'd pay it to Mahomes, but he's not making 50. He's making 40. He throws the whole thing off.
Right. And remember, just a handful of years ago, that was the biggest contract ever handed out. Now it's not even a top 10 number.
Yeah, you'd happily pay that contract out now. So, that point on when it comes to Brock is an inarguable point. It's just the market says that's an inarguable point based on what guys make.
What do you think it looks like when it's all said and done? How do you think they structure it? Is it going to be a 5-year deal that's really a 3-year deal?
Yeah. Yes. And if you're them, you want it to be like a 6-year deal with a couple years of fake money. And if you're him, you want it to be big and 4 years, and it lets you get another contract when you're 31. But I think there's one thing. I don't know. The Ayuk deal, and then the deal before that with Bosa, and you wonder how much the Niners for so many years just like quote unquote won the deals. And even with the Kittle deal, I think got a good deal. But I think the money, and I've had a lot of people disagree with me on this, unless the player, it's one thing if the agent really wants to drive it, but if the player's like, if I can make 50 a year, I don't need it to be 57. And that helps the team out, and I become overnight generationally wealthy, that might actually be a good deal for everybody. And I think that's what's going to end up happening here is you get a deal that changes the course of the Purdy family tree and doesn't end up putting the Niners in a major bind in 2027.
Right. I mean, I think a reasonable quarterback wants to thread that needle. You really do. You do want to be well paid. You also do want the talent around you. And that way you get to keep the main thing, which is winning football. And just by winning football games, you'll never have to worry about money ever again, no matter what your contract says. It all works together in that direction. I'm also going to tell you that Brock being such a good soldier and a Boy Scout, I think is working, like the fact he's not going to hold out, Guy. He's not going to hold out. I don't think he's going to miss practice. I think he would go out there and practice in a very non-contact jersey. Like this is a non-contact jersey plus non-contact. It's a zero, don't even breathe on me jersey, but I'll come out here and I'll throw the ball and I'll run plays. Like I think he's that much of a Boy Scout to do that and not leave a smidge for Matt Jones, or, dare I say, Curtis Rourke. I think this guy understands that talent being able to slip through the cracks left open by other talent is how he got his job. And he's not going to let somebody else slip through the cracks that would come with him holding out. Like, I think he's going to defend his own turf that way.
I think sometimes people really forget what it's like to just put yourself in a human's shoes. Just be a human being, a competitor, and put yourself in Brock's shoes, where you are working out on your own. You've plopped down on the couch, and the 49ers Instagram page has Mac Jones highlights. Mac Jones is doing the press conference because he's the only quarterback there. Right. Like, nobody wants that. Nobody. Now, if he'd already made a contract, different story. I'm not saying that is like affecting his whole psyche at all. It's probably it's a small percentage, but it is. it'd be a very human way to view the situation. Like, wait a second. I'm going to let Mac Jones run these quarterback meetings?
Don't do that.
Why would I do that? I just got here by being the guy just ready to roll. And I was not a guy Kyle Shanahan loved 4 years ago. This guy is. It's just human.
We know that Kyle will start dancing with another girl on the dance floor as soon as he sees her. We have seen that in his career. So, yeah, I think that Brock is going to want to remain on the dance floor, whether he's paid up front to do it or not. I think he's the kind of guy who's confident, just knowing it's all going to work out.
Yeah. The other thing, he watched the Ayuk situation play out and the Bosa situation play out. And both of those guys and the Debo, and all three of those guys admitted that their contract negotiate. Well, I don't know if Ayuk's admitted it, but
he didn't have to. We saw it.
Yeah. That it affected them. You had a formative year in your career. It's a critical year.
Absolutely. It's a huge year for all involved. By the way, Jonas, one more time, he's like, sorry about the soccer, but does it affect the Niners? We don't know yet. I mean, that's my honest answer. I don't know how business over here affects business over there, but if it's all connected, yeah, there might be something to it. As long as the 49ers go to the playoffs, I don't think anyone's going to really worry about what amount of attention or money soccer is gobbling up. I don't know. I do know this. You had an excellent chat. Who was it from Iowa staff that you talked to? Their offensive coordinator, their offensive line coach? Who was it?
It's Tim Lester, their offensive coordinator.
I love the conversation that you guys had. It was a little just, look into the mind of an offensive coordinator, not just from an X's and O's or strategy standpoint, but just from their imagination standpoint and how they come up with actual, plays and play calls and how they come up with the vocabulary that is their offense. And he was talking about how, Shanahan, basically a lot of his calls come out of the utensil drawer. He uses spoon, he uses knife, he uses fork. And he's saying, Shanahan likes airlines, Spirit, Delta. Yeah. A few other, I don't know. Alaska. I don't know if I've ever heard him call American Airlines or anything like that, or JetBlue. I've never heard that article, that audible. But I love that stuff, man. And obviously it was through a Big Ten game that you made that relationship to bring him on your channel, right?
That's right. Yeah, it was really cool. It's part of the fun of doing the TV work is we get into these meetings with these guys. Before you do a game, you do coaches meetings. So you talk to the head coach, then the offensive and defensive coordinators, and usually a few players from both teams. And you go into their offices and sit down with them. And the guys that I work with on my crew, Yogi Roth is the analyst and Rhett Lewis is the sideline reporter. And Rhett played football at Indiana, as you know. His jersey is hanging in the back of Sparky's, Benny's, Chucky's. What's it's like a big bar pizza place in Bloomington.
Kilroy's?
Huh?
Kilroy's?
No.
I mean, here's the thing. I was there like almost 30 years ago. So Lenny's? Is it Lenny's?
I got to look up Bloomington. Anyway, but these guys really know football. And because they really know football, they grind tape like football guys do. And so it opens up. The coaches really open up and give us good insight. So that's how I met him. Tim Lester was on the staff he was college teammates with Matt LaFleur.
Okay.
So he was on the staff of the Packers 2 years ago when the Niners beat the Packers in the playoffs at not the snow road game, but the home game, the Jordan Love, the fourth quarter kind of collapse game.
Yes.
And so he's got the LaFleur offense heavily influenced in the offense at Nick's English Hut, maybe?
Oh, Nick's. Yes, Nick's English Hut. That's one of the iconic bars.
Iconic.
Yeah, when you gave me the Lenny's or, I thought maybe Yogi's.
There is a Yogi's, yeah.
There's a Yogi's still. I used to close Yogi's down with gin and tonics 3 nights a week.
You were drinking gin and tonic in college?
I drank gin and tonics in college.
What an old soul.
Man, absolutely. I was eating pistachio and rum raisin ice cream. I've been an old man my whole life.
Well, what's funny is I drink gin and tonic now. That's my drink now. But, these guys, they have, I think people need, the one thing that I learned this year is these coaches, they get giddy about the same stuff that we on the couch get giddy about. When you see some cool play, that somebody else runs, they steal that play and they run it. And
The
and
Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV meme.
no,
No,
100%. Yes. Yes. And like that is the stuff that he captured that I thought was really fun. And
well, what's cool is you could tell that he enjoyed talking to you. And I'm guessing some coaches sit down at those meetings very guarded. And then if you gain their trust a little, they open up a little bit more. And you obviously put a relationship together where he was really telling you how it all works. And I just thought it was really interesting to get into a coach's mind and how they come up with their vocabulary, with their styles. By the way, if you told me that Iowa was mirroring its offense after a Matt LaFleur Packers offense, you'd have to tell me that before I believed it.
Yeah, people don't realize it. Yeah.
When I watch Iowa, I'm not seeing wide open, throw it around the football at all. So
they're getting there. They're getting there.
Okay. All right. I guess we'll believe it when we officially see it. Again, I've enjoyed your work on the Big Ten Network. I don't mean to be I try not to live an envious life, but I really wish I could have an element of your life. I would love to do what I do and then be able to get on a plane every now and then and go do a Big Ten basketball or football game.
Okay.
But I would love to do that. That would just tickle me as a huge fan of the conference. I would love doing it. Guy, having spent all those years on Pac-12 Network, and I'm not saying that the Pac-12 was a less than conference than the Big Ten, but it just, if I can steal from the SEC, it just means more. And I think you probably felt that in some ways. What has been your best in-stadium Big Ten experience as a broadcaster for Big Ten Network?
Ooh, that's tough. I mean, I called a humongous Indiana game, Indiana-Washington.
Yes, you did.
In Bloomington the week before Big Noon Kickoff had been there. And then the week that I was there was College Game Day was there, and Pat McAfee was there, and Lee Corso was an Indiana grad was there, and, picked Indiana before the game. And that place was rocking. Like, it was, what an awesome college town. And that was a lot of fun. I'll give you a couple others. One, I did 2 games at Nebraska, which they have sold out every football game of whatever it is, 198,000 people since like 1967 or somewhere in that range.
One of my favorite stats is Nebraska's stadium becomes the 3rd largest city in Nebraska on game day.
Yeah, that's a great stat. And then the other one I'll give you, sneaky, University of Minnesota. I was there in early October. They were playing USC. USC was at the time ranked in the top 20. It's an awesome town. The weather was off the charts. The stadium's very unique in that most stadiums don't have this, where one end, the end of the stadium facing west is open. So you get like a full sunset. I mean, it was just gorgeous. And then the game was great.
Nice.
So that was a good one. Yeah. And I did the Big Ten basketball tournament, and basketball tournaments are just awesome.
Yeah. Great call on that, by the way. It's how many games in a row do you do when they sit you down to the Big Ten? You do like 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row that day?
It was just two games on back. So you did 2 games and then 2 games.
Okay. Well, great job, man. What do you like to, what if you could have to choose, only get one, basketball or football, where would you go?
That's hard. I mean, football is like,
big daddy. Football pays the bills. Football means you matter as a broadcaster, but isn't basketball and being in those gyms the most electric
I love it.
thing there is?
And you're sitting on the floor a lot of times, which is really cool. So they both have something that the other doesn't,
Right.
So football is such a heavy lift, every week. It's a lot of work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, they're both awesome. Big Ten Network, the 2nd highest rated sports network on cable behind ESPN. How about that? To give you an idea of like the Big Ten schools, the fan bases.
Yeah. Oh, it's a monster. It really is. And when you're in it, when you're sitting there in the Midwest, you feel it. You go to, either coast and you're like, well, I don't get it. But when you're in there, you absolutely feel the gravity of the conference and how much it means to people. And you see families divided, towns divided by all this stuff. There is an element to loving college, which unfortunately never made it out to the West Coast, never really populated itself on the East Coast, but in the Midwest and in the South, it's a different monster. It really is.
Yeah. Eugene has it a little bit in terms of like, that's our one college town on the West Coast, like that type of Midwestern college town.
Right.
But But, as you know, there are a ton of Big Ten grads out here. I did a Michigan State USC basketball game. There's 30,000 Michigan State grads, 30 or 40,000 Michigan State grads in Orange County in LA. Think about
Really?
that. Yes.
Wow.
I did a basketball game at Purdue, like all these engineering schools, Illinois, engineering schools. So they've got Silicon Valley and Seattle.
Yeah.
There's a ton of alums.
By the way, rival Mackey Arena is freaking awesome, isn't it?
I hear, what people told me that's the best place. Because I was like, what's everybody's favorite? Every time I would ask people, like, what's the best? They'd say Mackey Arena.
The thing is, Assembly Hall is an absolute monster. There's nothing that looks like it, feels like it, sounds like it. But there are 6,000 terrible seats for fans to sit in Assembly Hall. You go up in the corners underneath the overhang. Good luck with that. You get a sliver of a game. Where in Mackey, it's just every seat is a good seat in Mackey. I'll give them that much. And you certainly have no banners in your way to blur your lines. You said that Minnesota was a great place to go. Hopefully the Warriors feel that way after tonight. Kind of changing gears here, Guy. Did you think that the Warriors were going to get past the Rockets?
Yes.
Do you think that they're going to get past the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Yes. Yeah. I'm no NBA analyst anymore. Like back when I was doing radio, I'd be like dialed in on, and I watch a lot of the Warriors, and but yes, I thought experience would win out in a Game 7 against.
I did. I liked them against the Rockets. I think the party ends in this series, though. One and done is what I predicted for the Warriors. I hope I'm wrong. More basketball. There's more stuff for me to watch. There's more stuff for me to talk about. It'd be great to see them get to the Western Conference Finals. Man, Denver stole one on the road in OKC last night. That was a hell of a game. We had the Knicks steal one in Boston. So the playoffs have been great. I mean, seriously great so far in the NBA. Give me as much of it as you possibly can. Oh, wait, hold on. We got more supers here. More supers are coming in.
I'm waiting to find out about my bad movie takes.
Yeah, I don't know. We got no follow-up on the bad movie takes.
Bullshit.
Hefe, gentlemen, I've been a fan of Guy since 2019. Over the past year, I've enjoyed discovering your channel. Damon, now that I'm graduating college, thank you both for the great content.
Well, now that I'm graduating college?
Thank you. Well, no, he's graduating college.
Yeah, I know. What does that have to do with anything?
Well, I'm just saying, as
like he's moving on in his life, and now he won't watch this stuff anymore.
No. He was saying that I think we're buoying a life. Now that I'm graduating college, thank you for the great content.
I've grown up with you. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Look, I remember I was asked in a 95.7 The Game meeting, like, what are you listening to? Whose show do you like? And I was like, Haberman and Middlecoff. I love that show. I love that show. I miss that show. Do you and John still talk an awful lot, or
all the time?
No, yeah.
I was at his wedding. I don't know, 2 months ago.
That's I knew he was engaged. I didn't know he actually tied the knot. Congratulations! Very nice. Very nice. What was it? Did that?
I officiated the wedding.
No, you're a wedding officiant.
I've done. That was my 4th wedding. Yeah.
All right.
Not available for hire. It's a lot of work.
Take me through the process. Is it marriage? Are you going straight Princess Bride up there? Or how do you do it? What's your closing? Like, you may kiss the bride. Is that where it ends traditionally?
Yes, that is traditionally where it ends. And I keep it, from that standpoint, pretty traditional.
Nice.
If anybody wants a reading from the Bible, we bring somebody up for that, bring up an aunt or something for that. And non-denominational wedding. Are we doing Catholics, Jews, Hindus, everything? I've done no Jews. As a Jew, I've done no Jews. I'm open to whatever. My thing is just it's gonna be 8.5 minutes. That's the key. Like, there you go. That's what you get. It is. I am the Chip Kelly of offensive. What Chip Kelly did at Oregon is what I do in wedding ceremonies. We warp speed. Does everyone get their own nutritional shake? And have you ever had a groomsman fake an injury to slow down the ceremony? No, I don't think we've ever had any sort of malfunction. Have you in your 4 wedding ceremonies?
What's the biggest mistake you've made? Have you screwed up anything? Have you gotten the bride's name wrong or mispronounced anything or something like that?
No.
That's why you're a pro. See,
did have it. Yeah. No.
That's why they bring you in. There is no sport that has found itself doing more damage to how much I used to love it in my lifetime than Major League Baseball. I will say, though, that the Giants have made me lean in a summer where I didn't think I'd be leaning into too much baseball coverage, certainly early on in the year. What do you think's more likely to happen here, Haberman? Are we going to look at a June swoon for a team that is, officially biting off more than it can chew right now? Or is this really one of the 3 best teams in the West, even though they weren't necessarily built to be, and they're going to be in a conversation and Buster Mania takes over the summer in San Francisco? Which do you think happens?
I'm rooting for it. I mean, Willie Adames, he hit double his home run total the other day, right? He had 2. Has he got 4 now?
Yes.
So he hasn't really hit. I mean, that's pretty critical.
Chapman's not hitting.
Yeah, you got to figure that's going to come at some point, especially for Adames. So I'm hopeful. I mean, my life has become football 365 days a year. I watch the Giants and I watch the Warriors, but it's not, for me, it's not like when I was doing radio, I was like every night I'm taking notes on every game.
Right.
I can't do everything at the level I want to do it if I do that. So I'm kind of a fan in that regard.
It's fun,
but like a bad fan, right? Like I'm not even fans could sit down and give you a better answer on that than me. I don't. All I know is I watch it feels like for the last 20 years of my life, if somebody gives you free tickets to something, it's to see the Rockies. It's like, it feels like the Rockies play the Giants 65 times a year, and it's always on a Tuesday and it's cold. And that's the night somebody gave you tickets. So that's what I think of when I watch the Rockies. They were good for a minute. You remember they were good for a minute. Are they good again?
No,
okay.
No, they're actually on pace.
Didn't think so.
One of the worst seasons in Major League history. The Rockies are not pointed in the right direction. I did see this, man. I saw this earlier today before you and I even started. It was like the last note that I wanted to talk to you about. We're living in a little bit of a weird world right now, and I'm not going to dive into politics or anything like that. But I did see Vivid Seats, which is a aftermarket ticket sales platform and app. Vivid Seats stock fell nearly 40% today. And a lot of people are saying this is a bellwether of economic times to come, and that what we thought were, industries that you'd never find a dip in, we're about to start seeing it, because sporting events and concerts have started to reach an untenable price point, even for the people who got money in their pockets. Mm-hmm. These are massive expenditures. And the cost of putting on games and concerts, it's only going to go up. And one of the reasons, especially in college, is NIL. NIL is a really easy thing to root for. As someone who thinks, these kids deserve to be broken off a little something here too, more than just, board and, dorm and, room and board, more than just room and board, more than just a scholarship. There's a $1 billion industry. They should be making a little bit money. But here's the thing, man. Q1 revenue for Vivid Seats, as its stock plummeted today, was down 14% year over year. Order volume down 20% year over year. Total order sales down 20% year over year. People are not spending their entertainment dollars as comfortably as they used to. The price of life is going up. The price of household items, food is going up. And it's only going to get worse with NIL. With no guardrails on it, these teams are going to be spending like drunken sailors, and that cost is going to be passed on to us. They're not going to have athletic departments making less profit. They're just going to be charging us more for everything. As someone who is around the sport of college sports as much as you are, how concerned are you with NIL? How concerned are you with the wild, wild west that is the transfer portal? And what guardrails would you put on these things if it were up to you to decide how this wild, wild west becomes a bit more tame?
Well, the first answer is kind of a cop-out, which is I spend no time being concerned about it because it's happening, whether I'm concerned about it or not.
Fair.
The people involved with it are very concerned. Part of it is what we may be heading towards, and what some schools are preparing for, is that NIL becomes true NIL, where players are paid by the institution. That's not NIL money. That's like pseudo employment, right? and then they can get additional NIL money. The money that you spend on your football team is going to have a quasi salary cap on it, or the amount of money that an institution can spend paying players of all sports there's going to be a total pot. So let's say your college football team, your salary cap is going to be like $15 million. That's a real-ish number. And then above and beyond that, now we're talking about actual NIL, where boosters give money directly to players for sponsorship, as opposed to what we have now, which is like schools are not supposed to be involved, but they're kind of involved because they got to direct the money to a particular place. And so the rich are still going to be the richest in that regard. But it's going to mean that, money is getting redirected maybe from your local John Deere distributor is going to, instead of putting a billboard up in the stadium, maybe that money is better redirected, which, you know what, having been around college athletics for a long time, there is some money that would be better redirected. Like the locker rooms in college athletics are way better than the locker rooms in the NFL, because these athletic departments were so flush with cash for so long that they would just pour it into recruiting, and recruiting meant facilities. And recruiting meant every player's locker has this system that dries the pads and the helmet. And then there's a TV underneath it and an Xbox and, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Massage chair.
So there are some places to redirect. But, to your point on the live entertainment dollars, everybody has been dealing. And I know, colleges have been trying to find ways to get people to come to games for a long time. Pros have, it's why some people have really been adamant that the kind of stadium you should build is not if you're a baseball team, a 48,000 seat stadium, but it should be a 31,000 seat stadium where it's full and maybe tickets are a little more at a premium than if your stadium is 45,000 people, right? And especially like baseball, where you're trying to fill a stadium every night and make it a good experience. I know, the Clippers, that's a big deal for them. It's making the experience easy. But fundamentally, if a beer is $14, a beer is $14. And that's a problem. In college athletics, what do you have? You have a lot of games that are not premium matchups, right? In pro sports, you get it, but it's not like the NFL. There's only so many games. Okay, the Falcons are coming, but whatever, there's only so many games.
Right. Where every college football season has a game against Western Kentucky built into it.
Correct. And even Alabama struggles to sell out William and Mary week 11.
Right.
So if you get, a college super league, in theory, fixes that, because you don't play those games anymore, because you don't need to go undefeated anymore, because there is a playoff system now where you can lose 3 games or 4 games and still make the playoff, right? So that's kind of the direction that's heading. But it has gotten so expensive.
It's insane. It's really insane. It's like the cost of going to a football game shouldn't be the cost of spending a weekend at Disneyland. And it really has become that for like a family of 4. It is
and should a weekend at Disneyland cost $4,500?
No, it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't. But at least, you are transported to a different world that is not available on your television. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not arguing. I'm not pro Disney here, but actually, that's not true. I love going to Disney. I love Disney. I can't wait to bring my boys to Disney. They're just not tall enough for the rides yet. We'll get down there eventually, but I'm going to start saving money now to be able to do it. And by the way, Ken, very good point here, Ken. He's tuning in. This is coming from the Haberman channel saying, I tuned in for sports talk and I got my other passion, an earnings review of sports ticket providers. And he's laughing. Laugh all you want, Ken. This segment applies to you more than any 49ers drafted who, hired who. Like, all that happens without affecting you. This is going to affect you. This is your wallet that they're coming for. So just trying to help out and provide a little clarity. By the way, Sarah, the domestic goddess, is checking in saying 2 of my favorite, most rational voices on YouTube for the Niners. Damon will always have my preference, though, and I will always tune in for some beta busting. Yeah, well, when they need to be dealt with, I will dealt with it. Thank you. But I'm telling you, Guy Haberman gets it done. Barry, again, Guy, I did color commentary for the University of Memphis basketball and found baseball more challenging. It's baseball's tough because you got a lot of time to kill in between pitches where you're not just calling action. But I wonder, were you around for the Keith Lee Memphis era? When were you there? Anyway, what do you think lasts longer? Bill Belichick's relationship with his 24-year-old stage mom or his time at UNC?
His time at UNC.
You think football is the true love, not her?
What a weird situation, man.
Isn't
how about Charles Barkley going on Dan Patrick and being like, I don't talk about relationships, but I'm gonna have to give Bill a call about this one. Like, that was eye-opening.
Look, it's a little weird when you see a man who was a, total, he controlled every element of his career and is now seems to have ceded every element of his career to his girlfriend. It's really, really odd. And then this isn't one of those, hey man, don't judge anyone else's love. Like I believe in that to a point. A 50-year age difference, like that's indefensible. That's just freaking creepy at that point. It really is. That's hardly a, June, May romance or whatever that's called when you're dating a woman who's like, slightly older than you or slightly younger than you. This is no May, December. This is he was born in the Great Depression. She just got here when the internet was invented.
Have you watched 4 seasons on Netflix? Steve Carell, Tina Fey.
I haven't watched it. I've seen the original though with Alan Alda.
Oh yeah, I saw that it's created by Alan Alda. Was it a show or a movie that he created?
It was a movie. I remember seeing it when I was a little kid on HBO.
Okay. Good show. This dynamic is at play.
Okay.
In the show.
Okay. Yes, the May-December, Michelle Haberman.
Pardon?
The May-December romance is what I was looking for.
The May-December is not the headline there. Her name is Haberman.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. No relation. No relation. Michelle Haberman. One of the most loyal. Dude, Michelle Haberman used to come and give me and Gianna like candy in the Warriors parking lot when we were doing pregame out there. And because that used to be, we used to live in a world where proximity mattered. And the pregame show, instead of coming from a studio, had to come from the parking lot at Oracle for some freaking reason. But it gave us a chance to get to know Michelle Haberman, and she used to drop candy off on me and Gianna. And since then, we've just been we've been great friends. Someone gives you candy, guy, and that changes relationships.
I've never met another Haberman.
Oh, seriously? There's other Habermans out there. There we go. Maybe we should get you two together. Maybe you're related. Maybe. The long lost Habermans. All right, Guy, I end every single one of my shows with a little today in history. Would you like to go over today in history with me?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, so we normally start with birthdays. No real significant birthdays today, other than the fact it would have been Willie Mays' 94th birthday today. Willie Mays would have turned 94 today. Wow. Today in 1889, the Eiffel Tower was officially opened to public in Paris. Did you know, Guy, that it was considered a blight and a scar on the city of Paris when it originally opened and is now hailed as one of the great, landmarks of the world? Same thing for the Transamerica Building and Sutro Tower here in San Francisco. Anything that you think is considered blight now will eventually be beloved one day?
I love the idea of like the the Salesforce Tower being like the 7th tallest building in San Francisco. The Coliseum. One day the Coliseum will finally get the love that it deserves.
Wouldn't that be great? They really did screw up the whole last dive bar thing that they had going for them. Today in 1915, Babe Ruth hit career home run number 1. It came off Jack Warhop for the Boston Red Sox. There you go, 1915. Today in 1937.
Wait a second. What team was Babe on?
He was.
You said he was with the best. Okay.
He was with the Boston Red Sox at the time. I don't know who they were playing that day. I don't know who Warhop was pitching for. Here, I got to grab this because I actually have it. It's the rare today in history where I have an actual visual aid to help. Because today in 1937, the humanity. The Hindenburg exploded over Lakehurst Airport in New Jersey. 36 passengers and crew members died. Some of the most early famous news footage, and of course became a cover for Led Zeppelin. And there you go. There is the Hindenburg. That is a Led Zeppelin album cover that I got, that I can lean up here. And there you go. There's your Hindenburg exploding right there. Oh, the humanity.
Because that is a Zeppelin, right? That is what that
is. So do you know how that the Led Zeppelin didn't have that name, and they were coming up with a name for the band, and somebody heard it, thought that they sucked, and they said, your band's going to go over like a Led Zeppelin.
And then their first album was one of the greatest albums ever made.
There you go. So what do music execs know? Nothing. Maybe the single greatest athletic accomplishment recorded last century. Today in 1954, Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, coming in at 3:59.4. Did it at the Iffy Road track in Oxford, England. And if you want to know more, go ahead and watch the movie Chariots of Fire tonight. Isn't that about breaking the 4-minute mile? Chariots of Fire?
All I know is the song, the music from Chariots of Fire.
There you go. And you wanted to defend your movie knowledge. Shame on you.
I didn't want to defend my movie knowledge. I want to defend my movie taste.
Okay. Speaking of taste, in 1956, American taste started to change when Elvis Presley appeared on the Milton Berle Show. That happened tonight in 1956. And between 1956 and today, nothing of any historical note happened until Guy Haberman joined Damon Bruce for a YouTube conversation. Thank you so much, Guy. Great stuff, man. Really, really appreciate it. You stopping on by. Anything to promote, plug? What do you got coming up on your channel? What do you got coming up? When do you start getting your Big Ten football assignments? It's way too early now. I'm guessing.
I think June we get our first 3 weeks, and then after that you only find out, like 2 weeks in advance, or maybe sometimes 1 week in advance of what the next game is going to be. You find out like rolling a week and 2 weeks out, basically. But I think we'll get our first 3 games in June.
Well, I hope they send you back to Bloomington.
Me too.
Wherever you go, man, you do a great job. You're really outstanding. And I'm telling you, I think I'm going to set the over under at 5 years. I'm going to take the under. I think you're going to be doing NFL games eventually here. I really do. I think you're on the track for NFL play-by-play. I know that you'd like to do that.
Put in a good word, Damon. Put in a good word.
Yeah. If there's one thing I do know, it's how to make great things out of broadcasting careers. I don't think a letter of recommendation for me goes nearly as far as it might have used to. But
could you have imagined 5 years ago, though, that there'd be a world for you after radio?
No. Thank God there is, because I am literally, one of the things that hit me in the face like a banana cream pie was my utter lack of ability to be employable in any other industry. If it's not talking into a microphone, what good am I? I don't know. It's too late for me to learn, get a real estate license. What do you pivot to when you're, oh no, I need to do something that's money. I'm going to be a car salesman. No, thank God I have this option. Otherwise I would be, driving Uber. Good Lord.
I saw a job listing the other day at Tesla. They need people to sit in the cars while they test out the self-driving.
I'm going to pass.
That's a hot button suggestion right now. That one, LinkedIn sends you emails like, here's a job you might like, and it's 17 jobs you would have no interest in.
So we're going to strap you into a car. Wish you good luck with that.
You just sit there. You just kind of watch the car. But
like I can be like on Twitter or doing a crossword puzzle.
Yeah, I don't know. LinkedIn needs to dial in its suggestions. I get all kinds of random jobs. Like, are you interested in food service in Des Moines? Like, well,
not really.
I don't tell me more, but I don't think so.
Yeah. I'm going to need an opening price point before I continue reading. Yeah. Real quick. Barry says, I did color at the Pyramid when it was opened as an arena. Now I think it's a Bass Pro Shop. Larry Finch era, Tick Price, John Calipari eras. There you go. Okay. All right. Thank you very much to Barry in Memphis. Thanks to everyone who was nice enough to drop a super chat on today's show. Thanks to everyone who was watching over on Guy's channel, over on the Plus here. Thank you to Ike's, the Dubliner. Download campsitetonight.app if you want to have yourself a really good place to go camping this summer in California. Anything to promote, Guy? You have a new sponsor, do you not?
I don't think so.
No, not right now. All right. Well, then there he is. Guy Haberman, ladies and gentlemen. Outstanding stuff, man. Let's do this
All right, David.
again and before like another 6 months passes.
Cool, man.
There he
Thank
is.
you.
Guy Haberman, boys and girls. There you go. Thanks very much for tuning in. Like and subscribe to both channels. And as always, we remind you that sports don't build character. They reveal it. And like that, they're gone.